What's up, YouTube? Your boy back once again with another sports topic, and today we're gonna talk some football, Houston Texans football. Today we're gonna talk about what it seems like is the fan favorite of what the Houston Texans should do at pick 25. We're gonna break it down, but before we get in there, like I tell you before me, if you're liking the content, make sure you liking the channel, make sure you're watching all the videos, you liking all the videos, you comment on the videos, you sharing all the videos, all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, any type of social media platform you use. Make sure you share on the same social media platforms. Also, follow me on social media as well. Link in the description below. Hey, we're still trying to get this channel growing and growing and growing. I can't do that without y'all help. So you know what that means? That means I need y'all to do your part. It means I need you to tell a friend, so they could tell a friend, so they could tell a friend, so they could tell some more friends, so they could tell some more friends, and put them on game with the channel. Really, really appreciate that. Now, the NFL draft is in a little over a week away. Yeah, I know I'm late. I know I'm supposed to have been doing videos about prospects and things like that. Been real busy. I apologize for that. But I have been putting up polls throughout this offseason about what the Texans should do at the 25th pick. I put up two separate polls. One poll talking about specific players, and another poll also talking about certain position groups. And it seems like the overall favorite when it comes to the Texans fan base, what the Texans should do at pick 25 is take a receiver. Now, I put up a poll saying, should the Texans take a receiver, offensive lineman, defensive tackle, and it was 54% from the fans, 54% wide receiver, a total of 43% for offensive linemen, but that's also split up into 22% as interior offensive lineman and 21% as offensive tackle, and then 3% as a DT. And then I also did position groups as far as certain players as well, certain receivers, certain offensive linemen, and the fan base keeps going back and forth with these two specific receivers, but we're going to talk about one today. But like I said, it seems like the overall favorite that the fans want the Texans to do at pick 25 is draft a receiver. And the receiver that it seems like most fans want to draft is Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver at Ohio State. I said I did a poll between him, Matthew Golden, and also some other offensive linemen. And it keeps going back and forth between him and Matthew Golden. I know a lot of that probably got to do with Matthew Golden playing at UT, also used to play at U of H and stuff like that. If I'm not mistaken, I think Matthew Golden is from Houston. But also, it seems like the fan base keeps going back and forth between those two, but it keeps going more so towards Emeka Egbuka. And I think the majority of the reason why is because he's a former teammate of CJ. Played Ohio State. He was CJ's number one receiver, CJ's last year at Ohio State. So let's look at Emeka Egbuka's numbers. So this past season, in the 2024 season, Emeka Egbuka had 81 catches off of 108 targets, catching 75% of the footballs thrown his direction, averaging 5.1 catches per game, 1,011 yards, 10 touchdowns. And his 1 year with CJ, because we're going to talk about the year with CJ as well, he caught 74 passes off of 105 receptions, 70%, averaging 70% passes thrown his way. He averaged 5.7 catches a game, had 1,151 yards, 10 touchdowns. That's the season with CJ. Now, Emeka Egbuka is a receiver, like I said, 6'1", 202 pounds. He ran a 4.45 at his pro day because he didn't run at the combine, so he ran a 4.45 at his pro day. We got to kind of take that with a little bit of grain of salt because it is the pro day. There's the stopwatch. It's not the laser. Unlike at the NFL combine, they use those lasers when they run their 40s versus doing it at a pro day when it's the coaches doing the stopwatch. Again, your hand, the sleight of the hand is quite, it's going to be a couple ticks slower than the actual laser this instant. So if he ran a 4.45 at his pro day, he probably ran a 4.5 at the NFL Combine. Kind of similar to Tank. We understand that that's not the end-all be-all. If you're a good crisp route runner, if you're able to catch the football and stuff like that, if you're one of those savvy guys and things like that, we absolutely know that, hey, those things translate better on the NFL because, hey, we seen Hopkins not have a fast 40. Like I said, we seen Tank also run a 4.5 at the Combine as well. So we've seen other guys that don't have those lightning fast 40s do well. And just like we've seen guys like, what's his name from the Cincinnati Bengals, Ross, that previously broke the record before Xavier Worthy broke it last year, have an extremely fast 40, but not really do much on the NFL level. When I look at Emeka Egbuka, I think he is a good receiver. I really do. I think he's a good receiver. Like I said, 75% last year catching the football in this direction. With CJ, 70%. He's a guy that's a good route runner, able to find the little holes in the defense and able to extend plays. I don't know how much of a playmaker he is, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I do think that a lot of the fans that want him as their number one receiver, or want like that's what the Texans should do at pick 25. I think a lot of that has more so to do with him playing with CJ versus him as an actual prospect. Because I do think there's other prospects in this draft that are actually better than him. I do think he's still a first round pick, and you kind of see him on the board sliding a little bit to the back half of the first round, around the 25th pick with the Texas draft, even potentially early on in the second round. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's there for you in the second round. So I can see a situation where, depending on how the draft board falls, the Texans don't pick him at pick 25, but still end up with him. Either trade back, get some draft capital, and move up and get him. Like if they trade, or or say if they end up drafting somebody like a Tyler Book or something like that, get an interior offensive lineman at pick 25, and then trade back up at the back half of the first round, or even trade up early in the second round to go out there and get a Booker. Because I can't see him being there anywhere between pick 20 all the way into pick, I say, 35 to 40. I could see him being on the board still around 38. I can still see him be on the board around 39. Like so, and that gets you into the second round. Anything after 32 gets you into the second round and beyond. So I can definitely see him being in a situation where he's like that. Now again, he's a guy who played primarily in the slot. He spent this past season 73% in the slot, 25% out wide. Now you did go out there, you signed for Christian Kirk, and mostly Christian Kirk, he could play outside as well, but he's mostly an inside slot receiver. So you drafted Emeka Egbuka, you actually putting him in the slot because that's where he better suits. And again, I do think that him and CJ are a good match. Again, 10 touchdowns last year, 10 touchdowns his year with CJ. He's a guy who does have a knack and does have a nose for the end zone. Kind of similar to Tank. Like Tank always found the way in the end zone. Anytime, I think with CJ's rookie year, Tank led the team in touchdowns, even though after he got hurt, Tank still led the team in touchdowns. So, or actually, Nico might have. I think when Nico scored that touchdown against Indianapolis, Nico might have actually overtook him or tied him. But the fact of the matter is, Tank found a nose for the end zone, and I do see that with Emeka Egbuka. I do see a guy that anytime you watch his tape, he's always a guy that gets into the end zone, and he's also a guy that when you talk about the makeup, he kind of fits the makeup of the team as far as the ultra professional, a guy that's very polished, very professional, not a guy that's really going to be out doing things outside the club and doing things outside in outside football. A guy who is all about his business, and I think from the makeup and the type of team that both Nick Casario and D'Amico Ryans wants to build, I definitely see that Egbuka being that type of receiver and being that type of guy to actually fit that bill. We just seen it with them paying Jalen Petrie last week. We seen them last month where they paid Darius Stingley. We seen it last year when they paid Nico Collins. We seen how these guys reward those type of efforts, and I can see that. I can see Egbuka being one of those guys, being a swarm guy. I definitely can see a guy who actually embodies that word swarm and actually is the type of person and the type of athlete and the type of player that off the field that the Texans definitely want inside their building. I do think that as far as on the field and what the Texans need, because let's be honest with you, we seen what's happened the last 2 years. We go to the playoffs that the Texans have been deployed and been without receiving help. It's been Nico Collins and everybody else. And you definitely need somebody else outside because of the injuries with Tank and stuff like that. Last past year with Stephon Diggs. So again, you need to go out there and get a Christian Kirk. You need to add somebody else to this receiver room. Absolutely. And again, we also got to mention Nico has missed time in every season, even after he got paid last year. Probably missed his most significant time. He missed 5 games. So Nico's missed time every season of his career, including last year. So now luckily for us and for him, he's been available when we most need him in the postseason. He's been available. But if you go back and watch that Kansas City game, And Troy Aikman even said it during the telecast as the game was being played. I remember saying it to myself as I'm watching the game is Nico Collins is out for big stretches of this game. Like, it's not just, oh, he's out for a play or two. It was like 5, 7 plays just being ran consecutively, and 12 is on the sideline, and you out there throwing to Xavier Hutchinson, and you out there throwing to Mechie, and you have to throw it to your tight ends because you don't have another receiver out there, and Nico is on the sideline, and we like, hey, is Nico hurt? Is Nico back hurt? But then Nico goes back out there and play. So what that tells me is that a guy that missed a lot of time this season, a guy who had nagging injuries, they get in these do or die moments. These, hey, it's win or go home. You gotta leave it all out on the field. They still have to be cautious, especially being in that cold weather. That's another issue too. You gotta get home field advantage as well because you don't want to put a guy who had hamstring issues because that's what took him out for 5 games was the hamstring issues. You don't want to put him in that situation to be out there in that cold weather in Kansas City and getting cramped up and getting hurt and being out even more. And you want to at least I guess, somewhat control how you have them because you rather have him sparingly through the game than not have him at all. You go out there and get hurt, and now you don't have him for the rest of the game. And this is a tight game. This is a very contested game. One possession going back and forth. This type of thing. The defense is playing well. Offense is able to move the ball in the run game and things like that. And you want to be able to have somewhat control. So I kind of understand how they was trying to manage the situation. But the fact of that we had to manage the situation like that is part of the problem. Emeka Egbuka played at Ohio State, played in cold weather. He's used to playing in cold weather and used to playing with CJ. So I definitely see him being the prospect again. If the Texans take Emeka Egbuka with pick 25, I'm going to be elated. I'm going to be happy that we drafted him. I'm not saying that I don't want us to draft him. I definitely think if he's on the board and that's the direction the Texans want to go in, I absolutely agree with it. But also in that same breath, if the Texans decide not to go in that direction, if they want to go with another receiver on the board, like a Luther Burden, like a Matthew Golden, if they're available, or if they want to go interior offensive lineman like a Booker, like a Simmons, like if they want to go somewhere else, I can kind of see the reasoning for it, especially if a Booker's there, because they like maybe 25 is not the value for Emeka Egbuka. Maybe we should go in another direction. Maybe we could get somebody else. But it does seem like the fan favorite. And again, they go back and forth between Emeka Egbuka and also Matthew Golden. They go back and forth, but it does seem like the fan favorite is slightly a little bit more towards Egbuka. And I do believe, and I do think that majority of that is not is really because of him playing Ohio State, playing with CJ Stroud versus what he actually did as a prospect. Because I think if everything the same, Emeka Egbuka, everything's the same, but instead of playing Ohio State, he played at Georgia, or he played at LSU, or he played at Tennessee, or he played at Virginia, or he played at Texas Tech, or he played at Oklahoma. I don't know if he would be the fan. I still think that he's a top 25. I think he's still a guy that people think is in the range to be drafted at pick 25. I do believe he'd still be a guy that people think is a first round draft pick and one of the top receivers in this draft. I don't think the Texan fan base has him as their absolute favorite as it seems like it is right now, according to the polls. And again, hey, the polls are still up there. It's not too late to vote. Both of those are two separate polls. Who would you rather them draft, and what position did you think that they will go after in the draft? So make sure y'all go out there, y'all check out them polls. Like I said, but Emeka Egbuka definitely looks like he's the fan favorite. Like I said, 6'1", 202-pound receiver. Mostly playing in the slot. A guy who's short-handed, like I say, 75% catches thrown 75% of the passes thrown his direction last year. End up with a catch, getting over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, averaging 5 receptions a game. But again, somebody coming out the slot, so that means he's getting a lot of short yards and stuff like that. He's doing a lot of the dirty, nasty work and things like that, help moving the chains along. But is he the impact receiver to can make this offense go up the next level and be a complete complement to Nico Collins, especially when you have somebody like Christian Kirk you talk about getting a slot receiver and you already got a Christian Kirk on your team. So I don't know exactly if that's the case, but I definitely believe he will be an upgrade over the other receivers that you have. And I do think that he might have roughly around the same as a Christian Kirk as far as potential of what he can end up being. I mean, he probably could end up being a Christian Kirk type receiver. And he probably could be better than Christian Kirk. So if you bank on him being better than Christian Kirk, absolutely go out there and draft him. Again, I'm not saying don't draft him. I'm just saying that I do think a lot of the fandom around the Texans fan base wanting that to be your number one receiver is because of the Ohio State CJ Stroud connection and not so much of what he did on the field by himself. Like this,